I'm blurry, and it's like maybe it's my camera settings. Maybe it's because our listener is viewer, I should say, is really drunk, or maybe just
Probably.
out of one eye.
I'm guessing it's the latter.
I hope everyone's really drunk right now.
Yeah, well, I'm not because I just finished my class, so
That's no excuse, Amanda.
yeah. Well, I'm catching up, I promise.
Do what you can.
Welcome to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the disgusting, the dark, and the disgraceful. In our unmentionables, of course. That's right, we've slipped into something more comfortable and hope you are as well. Welcome, everyone. I'm Amanda Kamada.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
Hello, how are you this evening?
Feeling shameful and tired.
Shameful. Is it because the talk of shame you just sent to me?
Actually, yes. Like I edited it 2 days ago, and I've been sitting on it because I was like, am I actually good with posting that? Because
Yeah.
I did talk about a personal sex toy,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is pretty bold for me.
Yeah. Well, you can still think about it. It hasn't been published yet.
I'm good with it. I thought about it.
All right.
I feel like I've got maybe a family member listening, maybe two.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them to skip, but I may have I may have one or two coworkers listening.
Oh, I see.
This is the greater concern.
Yes.
But do I care? I mean, honestly, is it not something I would say in office?
Right. Right.
I'm not that much.
I've seen the doodles that you've done in my notebook before.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to dirty doodles and sex toys.
Yes. They're both what life is made of. What dreams and or nightmares are made of.
Wet dreams are made of.
There you go. There you go. How are you doing otherwise? All good?
Good. Yeah.
Good.
It's work stress. All those fun things that we'll get into in the talk of shame.
Of course. Yes. The talk of shame. But first, we have to talk about our Lush series. Totally loved your first story. I thought it was great. And I think I've listened to it 2 or 3 times actually. And I've watched it.
Oh.
So, yeah. Yeah. Thought it did. I think it's going to do really well, honestly.
It was fun editing for YouTube. I'm just sort of getting the hang of that. So I added in a lot more visuals, which I'll do for this episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching right now, stay tuned because there's visuals just coming at you.
Yeah. Coming at you from everywhere.
Every angle.
Every
Above,
angle.
below, behind.
Wherever we can get ourselves into.
Just slip it in there.
Yes. Well, that's cool. So, whenever we left our last talk of shame, I gave you 3 hints, and they are knife, rapper, and let me clarify rapper as in rapper like Jay-Z, not like a candy wrapper, and Georgia. And I kind of came inspired tonight with some sequins and gold. Just, I don't know, when I think rapper, I think, a little over the top. So I decided to go over the top this evening and do a metallic, a sequined bikini top. So, yeah.
As the kids used to say, you're sporting some bling.
I am sporting some bling, bling, bling. I've got so much ice you can skate on it. Have you heard that? It's like a lyric to a song. Yes.
Gosh, we are so hip and trendy, Amanda.
I know. I
Finger on the
know.
pulse.
Well, I know. The pulse of nobody.
The faintly beating pulse.
So, any guesses?
Zero clues.
0 clues?
No, I
Okay.
mean, I'm thinking like Atlanta hip hop, and there's a lot going on there,
Yes. Yes, there is. And
right?
there was a lot going on with this story. So I'm going to continue the Lush series by talking about the murder of Rahim Grant. And I'm going to save my sources until the end because I don't want it to give it away.
Okay.
But a lot of the news articles and stuff that I got this from were from the Atlanta area. So you're on trend with that train of thought. So Um, December 29th of 2017 at 10:50 p.m., there was a 911 call made. It was placed by a neighbor of a woman named Sierra Harp. So Sierra had knocked on her neighbor's door with her young daughter in her arms. Her neighbor could tell that she had been repeatedly stabbed. She was hysterical and bleeding profusely. So it's almost 11 o'clock at night. This neighbor opens the door after Sierra knocks on the door. And this is not Sierra, the Sierra, by the way.
Sierra.
Different Sierra, but she knocked on her neighbor's door. She had her daughter, young daughter, with her and was bleeding profusely. It was obvious that she had been stabbed. So 911 was called around 10:50 that evening. So whenever officers and medics arrived, Sierra was very combative with the medical tech team, who said her blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit, or she had a 0.24 blood alcohol level. So she was, a quarter of her body was drunk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Yeah. But 3 times the legal limit. I mean, I'm sure I've been there many times, not behind the wheel of a car, not
Yeah.
knocking on somebody's door bloody, thank God. But, she was combative with her medical team. But I think if I had been stabbed and I had a blood alcohol content of 0.24, then I probably would be a little hysterical myself and kind of combative. So they saw that she had been stabbed in her legs multiple times. They were concerned she was losing too much blood and could lose her life, so they took her immediately to the hospital. So they weren't really able to question her. They took her daughter and then went to her apartment to see, and start to investigate what's going on. So keep in mind that at this point, she's on her way to the hospital and hasn't really talked to authorities other than the fact that she has, the blood alcohol level and is being hysterical. But upon entering Sierra's apartment that she shared with her boyfriend, aspiring rapper Rahim Grant, now he is known in the rap community at this time as Red Breezy. And I've never heard of him, but he apparently opened up for Ludacris, Master P,
Oh,
etc.
wow.
Yeah, but he was actually found dead on the floor of the bathroom and bedroom area with multiple gunshot wounds. So, the way that their apartment was set up, it seems like there was a bathroom connected to the bedroom, and he was kind of found lying in between the two. So, they find him dead on the floor. She's on her way to the hospital. So, the only person that they have talked to at this point is the neighbor. So, because they were not able to really talk with either of them, an investigation obviously began. 9 shell casings were found by Rahim's body, or Red Breezy's body. Blood covered the floors and walls of their apartment in Clayton County, Georgia. The only eyewitness to this at this point is their 3-year-old daughter. And they couldn't really interview the child for multiple reasons,
Yeah.
just psychological reasons, the fact that, can you trust what a child says? You just can't put a 3-year-old in that position. But they did get search warrants for the apartment because at this point, he's a kind of like a gangster rapper type, and so with him being shot dead and her having stab wounds at this point, they don't know if this might be associated with his rapper lifestyle or if it is a domestic incident, which where they were kind of leaning towards at first. And search warrants on their apartment were served. A gun was found, as was a serrated knife. And the neighbor actually said that Sierra had the gun in her hand when she went to the apartment. So the neighbor thought that it was a domestic incident and said that to the police. And a phone also was found and confiscated by police at the time of the investigation. But at that time, they didn't know whose phone it was, if it was his or if it was hers. And so they just, kind of put it in the bag. So at first, police really were leaning towards that it was a domestic assault and looked like an open and shut case of self-defense on Sierra's part because she had the gun and the stab wounds, and they found the knife and the gun as well. But Rahim's mother thought differently. She told police, quote, "Find his cell phone. Whatever is in there is recorded." So, who was Rahim Grant, aka Red Breezy? He was born in Fayetteville, Georgia in 1989 and was in the entertainment industry since he was like 3.5 years old. So, he was one of those. Yeah, he was one of those kids that grew up performing and wanted to be a gangster rapper as well as a producer, etc. So he, kind of came up in the world of entertainment and, got into the hip hop lifestyle. And in 2013, he met a fan named Sierra Harp. And she was kind of a super fan of his, went up and introduced herself and wanted to help him and get a job being like one of his promoters. And so, as things go, within 2 months, she became pregnant with his baby, a baby girl named Angel Grant, and that was who Sierra was holding whenever she knocked on the neighbor's door. Raheem, though, really loved his daughter, began to mature a bit, but he made it really clear to Sierra that she was only kind of like his baby mom. They weren't in a traditional relationship. He actually, I don't think, even was on the birth certificate whenever his daughter was originally born. And so he had essentially no rights to her. So they were trying to co parent and they actually lived together, but it was sort of known that it wasn't an exclusive relationship, or at least he tried to make that clear.
Do you know, did they continue to work together? Like, was she still trying?
I didn't really get in
Was she
that.
actually promoting him, or did she just like use that and then all of a sudden she was like,
I think she used that and said, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm pregnant.
okay.
So this was 2013 that they met. So their daughter was born 2013, 2014 timeframe. But as of December 2017, he was getting ready to go on his national tour. He would be gone for a year. So, he has a gangster persona. It's a dangerous lifestyle. He said one time he thought he wouldn't live to be 25, which he was actually 28 years old when he was shot. So again, they wondered if this was a domestic incident or was it a gang involved sort of thing, related to drugs and that side of things. So they're still kind of trying to make sense of what's happening with both sides of his life, if you will. Sierra was born on January 1st, 1989, and she was one of those people who kind of struggled to find her place in the world. She was always a troubled child, fighting people. She continued to rebel in her teenage years and always carried a knife with her. So, she was sort of one of those tough girl personas that, to your point, I think she probably was just a super fan that was like, hey, I can help promote you, and then ended up getting pregnant. And having the baby with him, which I think she expected more of the relationship than she was getting from him
Mhm.
and wasn't excited about him going on this year-long tour without her. When Raheem Grant's mother was interviewed by the police, she told them she was sure Sierra killed him and that she was the aggressor and he the victim. She said she was obsessed with his success, but he didn't want a girlfriend. There was lots of tension in the relationship, but she couldn't believe her son had been violent. She had never seen him be violent with a woman, and she reiterated that if they could get into his phone, they would find out the truth of what happened.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that his mom is like, get into his phone, get into his phone.
Yeah.
I think it might be very difficult to get into people's phones, you know.
Yeah. I'm like, do they just hold it above his corpse and use the face scan?
Exactly. I wonder if you could do that now.
That's a dark joke, but
But it might be true.
it might
I kind of wonder if they could do that. It's actually really interesting. So this all happened on December 29th. His autopsy was done on January 2nd, so a few days later, and his autopsy showed that he was shot multiple times. Now, one thing that was a little weird to police is if it was self-defense, why was there a bullet in his head? She could have, so if he had attacked Sierra with that knife, she could have potentially, defended herself by using the gun, but wouldn't have had to stand over him and shoot him in the head and take his life in order to protect herself. At some point, somebody's going to go down and not be able to come after you, right? So they also noticed during his autopsy that he also had stab wounds to his forehead and the back of his shoulder. So it's kind of like, so how did he get the stab wounds? She never mentioned she was the one doing the stabbing. And, they're still under this pretense that the male is usually the aggressor and the female is usually the victim, right? But
Yeah.
then they're starting to put these pieces together and they're like, wait a minute, why does he have stab wounds on his forehead and in his shoulder? She never mentioned anything about that. She had the gun, and then he's also shot in the head. So shooting somebody in the head is, a certain way is very specific. Sierra in meanwhile was unconscious in the hospital for days before she spoke to the police. So even as his autopsy was being done, I think they said she was kept in an induced coma for about 5 days or so.
So her wounds must have been pretty intense for that to happen.
Right. It
So
seems like she was losing a lot of blood.
so throughout this whole thing, I've been thinking it sounds like self-inflicted wounds that she gave herself to appear as though she'd been attacked. But if that is the case, it was very excessive. Anyway, I don't want any spoilers, but that's where my head is right now.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. So she was unconscious in the hospital for days before she spoke to police. Now, do remember whenever they came and got her, she was hysterical and she had like all of the stab wounds, and they were afraid she was losing too much blood. So there may have been some major arteries that were severed, and that sort of thing. And it didn't say specifically, it said it focused mostly on her legs. But I know that there are a lot of arteries and stuff running through and veins running through legs.
All
So,
those varicose veins.
oh God, I'm
Just
so glad I don't have
right,
those yet.
right on the surface.
Right on the surface for everyone to see. Um, so whenever she finally woke up from the coma and they were able to interview her, she first said Rahim had been violent for years. Said he hit, slapped, and began punching her. She said that she had a knife in a holster and that he grabbed it and started stabbing her. Then she grabbed his gun and started shooting him. When she never said anything though about him being shot in the head when he was down on the floor. So they began doubting her story. So basically, she's saying, now remember when she was a teenager, they said that she always carried a knife. So she said that he grabbed this knife from her holster, started stabbing her. So she grabbed the gun, that sort of thing. Well, in all of this, a new person came forward. Her name was Elise Jones, or is Elise Jones. And she was a friend of his that had stopped by earlier that evening that this happened and was at their apartment very briefly and said that she actually got up and left because there was tension in the room. But in all of the investigations that the police did, they weren't able to substantiate that he was violent to Sierra in the past. There were no domestic violence calls. Nobody came forward saying that he had. But, I mean, domestic violence, though, is sometimes stuff people don't talk about if it is happening to them.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's not something that you really offer up that willingly to people.
Sometimes it's forbidden.
Yes, always forbidden. So they did look into the fact, though, that they were going through sort of a custody battle. He was trying to get custody of the daughter because he wasn't on the official birth certificate, those sorts of things. He wanted full custody of the baby because her behavior had become erratic and she had been jealous. And his mother actually that she told him to record her when she started acting crazy.
Oh, right. So, okay, this is what I was. So she gave him that instruction at an earlier date. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So after a month of investigating, police were still baffled because they were trying to break into his phone. They weren't able to get in.
Wow.
Near
It takes that long for the police to be able to get into a phone?
Now, this happened in like 2017, so maybe there's better technology and stuff for that now, but I could see back then maybe it being a little more challenging to get into somebody's phone.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, like, it should be for, like, for privacy purposes, but you would think
Right.
that with a search warrant, like, a phone carrier or whatever would be able to grant access to, but
Something. Yeah.
I get it, yeah, it's gray area for sure.
Yeah, it's like you gotta get into their cloud, or in the phone to so then maybe it's, yeah, the carrier, or is it the manufacturer at that point that would have to get you in there?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's kind of interesting thing to think about. But nearly 2 months after his death, they actually got her somehow to give them the passcode to get into his phone. So Sierra actually gave them the passcode to get into his phone, and I'm not exactly sure how they got that from her, but how kinda dumb can you be if this is what happens afterwards? So
Sierra.
basically, she gave him the passcode, they got into the phone, and they saw the videos. There were 4 videos. Now at 10 so working backwards from her going to her neighbor's house and the 911 call being at 10:50 PM. At 10:27 PM, there were started 4 videos. 10:27, one showed injuries from her stabbing him. Then shots are fired. Camera's up and I'm reading this sort of like verbatim from my notes. So the camera's up and she is losing her mind and in a rage. He remains calm after he is shot. On video, she is not stabbed. She has no blood on her legs, etc. They could now tell now that the wounds that she had not been inflicted. There's a quote from this. It says, quote, and this is him. Y'all see this? This what this bitch did to me. A bloody Grant said while filming himself in the first video, which was obtained by Snapped. And that's one of my sources is the show Snapped. Quote, look at this knife. Y'all see this shit that Sierra Harp did to me? End quote. They actually on the Snapped episode had video of this happening.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's
It's kinda
intense.
crazy. It's pretty intense. In the sec So that was the first video. So the first video, they can tell that she has not yet been attacked with a knife, that she has attacked him or that he has been attacked with a knife and she shot him, and he's saying, "Y'all, like, look what this bitch is doing to me." So the second video, she has blood on her face in the second video. He's bleeding out on the floor while she's yelling at him. He pleads to give his daughter a hug. Police think that at this point, he knows he's going to die. The third video, there's a child's voice that says, quote, "Daddy, daddy." Then a
Oh my
sixth
god.
gunshot is fired. She stood over him and fired the final round. No, he was no threat, no danger to her at this point, even if they had been in a domestic altercation.
And the daughter is there.
Yeah, the daughter's there saying, "Daddy, daddy."
That is
Awful.
heinous.
3 years old.
That's so sad.
Mhm. And then in the 4th video, she stabbed herself afterwards. Police said it was like watching a movie. So on February 22nd, 2018, she was arrested after they discovered these videos. So that was about almost 2 months solid after he was killed. So in May 2019, a jury found her guilty of malice murder and aggravated assault, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So at the trial, Sierra's own mother called for a life sentence for her daughter, also telling the court that they should make it mandatory that she should be, quote, sterilized because she shouldn't have any more children. Her own
Whoa.
mother said that.
Can I make
Yeah.
a comment there? While I don't disagree with the mother, I do wonder, because that's a lot for a mother to say about her daughter.
Mhm.
So it sort of makes you wonder about, and I don't have the context as a disclaimer, but it does make you about her own upbringing.
Mhm. Of course. Yeah.
So just throwing
Yeah.
that out there.
Yep. So Harp was sentenced to 125 years in prison in June of 2019, and her daughter is currently being raised by Geraldine Grant Bryson, who is a member of the family. And that is the story of the murder of Rahim Grant, aka Red Breezy. Like I said, my sources were the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, other local Atlanta news outlets for the most part, and then also an episode of Snapped on Oxygen. It's season 30, episode 9. It first aired December of 2021. If anyone wants to go and watch it, it's pretty crazy when they have like the actual audio and stuff like that kind of playing over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you can
But
handle it,
yeah.
that's that's a lot. That was
Yeah.
good. That was really good.
Thank you.
Made me wonder what were they drinking? But
Right.
also like, do you think that was like the trigger? Not the trigger, but do you think that was like her defenses were down because of the alcohol, so she made that decision under the influence?
Yeah,
It
it's
seemed
hard to
impulsive.
say. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because it said she was a troubled, teen and that she had always carried a knife. So that says to me like that's a fairly combative person to begin with. But I can't imagine like being three times the legal limit that would, if you were already, and let's face it, she may have had some health issues as well, that played into this. But I'm thinking when you're putting layers upon layers of things together, I'm sure the alcohol really did play a role in what happened that night or how far it went that night.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
crazy that they had all of those videos though. 4
yeah,
videos, like, and heartbreaking that her daughter saw that. Hopefully she was so young she doesn't remember it.
right. Oh God, you have to wonder though if like something that severe gets sort of like ingrained in there somewhere. I would hope not.
Yeah.
That's that was tragic when the daughter is asking for him.
Yeah, that and when he's asking to let him hug his and you can listen to the audio and stuff of it, and she's just screaming at him like, "I want you to die," sort of, kind of things like that. I'm not saying that verbatim, but
Yeah. I don't think I can watch that. I think I will
yeah.
cry if I watch that. Like
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
hearing the voices, I think, ugh. It's that I love I shouldn't say I love, but I'm really when I see things like that, I find it very fascinating. But it's like something you can only experience once. And if you know in advance what's coming, I just don't know if I can do it. I think
Yeah.
your story was good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually I didn't see this one at first. I actually heard it because I listen to Snapped episodes when I fall asleep every night.
Oh my God.
And I woke up in the middle of the night and this one was playing and I couldn't sleep. And so I listened to it. And so then I watched it after I listened to it on they have their own like podcasts, where they play snapped episodes.
Mhm.
So that's basically where I got it from. So I have listened to and watched it, and I think it's sad, but I think you get sadder than I do about things like this, especially when there are like kids involved and stuff. Or, I mean, I would only probably get that if I had like if there was a pet involved, like if a dog got killed or something like
Yeah.
that, then I would get choked up.
You know, I didn't used to. And then there was this time when, God, I must have been like 18 or 19. I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hmm.
And there's an episode where, because in that series, when people die, it's usually from like supernatural things. And
Hmm.
so, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Buffy and you're just starting to watch it, skip over this part because it's a spoiler. Also, this aired ages ago, so whatever.
Get with it.
Get with it. But there's an episode in like maybe season 4 or 5 where the mother has had just like weird health issues, right? And she's in and out of the hospital, and Buffy and other people are like taking care of her. Anyway, there's an episode where Buffy comes home and she's like calling for her mom. She walks into the living room and her mom's laying on the sofa. She's talking to her mom and realizes her mom is not responsive and her eyes are open
Oh my God.
and she's dead. And I remember watching that, and that was like the first time as like a fully formed adult, because as we know, teenagers go through a process where empathy becomes a thing, but it's not there when you're first starting out, you
Right.
know?
Hmm.
So for most, I should say. And so I think that was my moment for me when I was like, oh my God, like these terrible things happen to other people. And I remember like sitting there and crying and being like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
And that. But yeah, I do, especially if I'm having a glass of wine, if I'm watching something emotional, it's liquid in and liquid out, squish, squish, squish.
Well,
So
I think that's very sweet. On the other hand, it takes a lot. Takes a lot. It usually takes a dying animal to get me.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good reason.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
We love our
Everything else,
animals.
I know. Totally. Totally. But yeah, what an interesting story, right? Like,
Yeah, it was. I I sort of expected it to take that turn that it took, but I did not expect the mother with the like check the recording. Like that was pretty interesting
yeah.
and also like brilliant. Good on
Yeah.
her for
Yeah. Is that your
being
doorbell?
there. Yeah, it sure is. I have a UPS delivery. I'll check in a minute. It's fine.
Oh, okay. It's okay, Tilda. It's probably just a lot of briefs.
Yeah, she just wants to meet whoever's on the other side of that door. It could be a dog killer. She just want to lick him. Yeah, isn't that right, sweetie?
So, where can everyone continue to listen, rate, and review us?
You
Blake.
can listen, watch, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube. Remember to subscribe. That means a lot. That would mean so much to us. Please subscribe.
Yes, please
Um,
subscribe. We need subscriptions, especially on YouTube.
yeah, we're just getting started there. Of course, rate and review. That also has a big impact on the algorithms. They all listen to that stuff.
Mhm.
So the
And our
more
lives, our potential lifestyles.
and yeah, we're we're just
We're
wasting away
struggling.
over here.
We're making tens of pennies. If we're even making, I think we're in
Uh,
debt.
we're Amanda. We have made 0 pennies on this. In fact, we have
we
invested.
we yeah, in fact we've invested more than anything. So,
Yes.
and our
Um,
time.
and I would also say if you haven't done this yet, I would say if you're enjoying this, tell your friends. Referrals, please. Tell
Yeah,
your friends.
refer a friend.
You have other friends who like to talk about dildos and murder, and
We
we're good
can't be the
company.
only two that you
We're
are talking to
definitely
about
not the
this.
only two. Let's do a series on people that are murdered by dildos with dildos. Has it happened? Probably.
Probably.
We'll get to the bottom of that. Stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Yeah. Oh, you just wait till this talk of shame. I've got a doozy for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right.
And
Oh,
keep
okay.
also, if you want to check out our website, it's actually pretty fun. We've got a lot of good photography and stuff like that on there. That's www.theforbiddenpod.com, as well as our Facebook and Instagram at The Forbidden Pod.
And on the photography, shout out to Orlando, who photographed us
Yes.
for many of those, and to Sabrina, right? Who is
Sabrina.
Your glam artist.
Yes, she was awesome. We follow each other now on Instagram personally as well as like the Forbidden Pod. So I definitely, I wouldn't mind having her do my makeup again for sure.
Yeah,
Particularly like on a location somewhere. She did good.
yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Are we missing anything? Oh, yes. If you have stories, if you have if you have as much shame as I do, if you have not listened to the last episode where I talked about my sex toy thing, check that out. And then also write in hello at theforbiddenpod.com and tell us
Yes.
about, have you gotten a sex toy stuck somewhere or other stories similar? Then please write in.
Yeah. Don't wait. Do it now.
Do it
And it
now.
can be anonymous. Get it out.
If you have a sex toy stuck in there, get it out and
Get
then
it
write
out.
in.
Yeah. Go to the hospital maybe if you need to.
Is it a shampoo bottle in the butthole? We've all been there. Call 911 and then send us an email.
Yes, yes. We want to make sure you're okay, but we want to hear all about it too.
Absolutely. Have we forgotten anything?
I don't think so. I guess I can thank you for listening to the story and being
And
so engaging.
of course, and I can thank you for telling the story, which I enjoyed so much.
Awesome. And listeners, we hope you enjoyed it. And as always, we thank
Thank you.
you.